Welcome back, everybody, to our weekly class on the Yoga Sutras. In this section, we're going to be reviewing the sutras within Pada 1. And today, we're going to be focusing on Sutra 17 through 22. The purpose of this class is to review the sutras, but more importantly, to chant them together and to contemplate them together. So once again, we have Danelle Mason from New Zealand with us. Thanks for being here, Danelle.
Good morning from New Zealand. It's nice to be here.
And before we get started, I'd like to take a moment for a brief centering meditation. So if you wouldn't mind closing your eyes, sitting up straight, and taking a moment to turn your attention within. And take one or two nice deep breaths. And on the exhale, let your whole body, let your whole being relax and let go into this moment. And bring your awareness to your hands and feel the warmth, the temperature, the pressure, and any sensation within the palms of the hands. Bringing the awareness down into the body, letting the mind take a break and be still for a moment or two. And flow your attention down into your feet, feeling the soles of the feet. Sensing the temperature, the pressure, any feeling within or around the feet. And you can bring the attention inward to the body, the torso, as if you're feeling scanning up through the arms and the legs, feeling the shoulders, the chest, feeling the hips and the pelvis and the lower abdomen and lower back. Feeling the warmth within the body, the sensation of your clothing against your skin, of the chair against your back. And ultimately sensing the movement of the breath. As the torso expands and contracts gently in a smooth, relaxed fashion. With the sense that the whole body is breathing. As if you are able to be aware of the electromagnetic field of the energy that permeates, runs through, surrounds the body, and it moves with the breath, slowly, deeply, fully. And as you adopt this full body awareness and this breath, as we explore the sutras and chant together, feel the chanting with your whole body. Listen as if you're listening with your whole being. And try to maintain this throughout the session. And before we begin, we'll honor and acknowledge the teachers that have made it possible for us to be here, the representatives of the Kriya Yoga tradition, Mahavatar Babaji, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Shri Yukteswar, Paramahansa Yogananda, Roy Eugene Davis. And we'll also honor and acknowledge those teachers that have inspired us more deeply into the sutras, into the understanding of the sound and the principles. Vyas Houston, Swami Veda Bharati, and when you're ready, you can take another deep breath, relax, and open your eyes to conclude. Om, peace. Okay, so we're going to begin with Sutra 117. And the process we're going to follow is Danelle is going to chant the words in certain sections of the sutra. And the idea is she will chant it, and then she'll repeat it a second time. And on the second time, you chant along to the best of your ability. We'll go through all the sutras in that way. And then at the end, just as we've done in previous classes, we'll have all the sutras up on the screen, and she'll take you through chanting the whole section that we've gone through. But make it meditative, feel it deeply within the body, and that'll help you with your understanding as well. So let's go ahead and get started. So Sutra 117.
Okay, Sutra 117. Vitarka Vicāra, Vitarka Vicāra, Ānanda Asmitā, Ānanda Asmitā. Vitarka Vicāra Ānanda Asmitā, Vitarka Vicāra Ānanda Asmitā. Rupa Nugamat, Rupa Nugamat, Samprajñāta, Samprajñāta. Vitarka Vicāra Ānanda Asmitā, Vitarka Vicāra Ānanda Asmitā. Rupa Nugamat, Samprajñāta, Rupa Nugamat, Samprajñāta. Vitarka Vicāra Ānanda Asmitā, Rupa Nugamat, Samprajñāta. Vitarka Vicāra Ānanda Asmitā, Rupa Nugamat, Samprajñāta.
Okay. So in this document, you'll be able to see the words and the literal rendering of this sutra. Samprajñāta Samadhi is accompanied by Vitarka, Vicāra, Ānanda, and Asmitā. So this is describing one of two types of samadhi that Patanjali discusses, and it's Samprajñāta Samadhi. So let's look at each of the words here. So I have Vitarka, gross thought, reasoning with a coarse object. Vitarka is, in a way, conceptualizing something, thinking about something, using the words. If you're thinking about a cup, you see it in your mind. You say the word cup. You engage any kind of idea or gross thought to bring up the idea of a cup. And then Vicāra, subtle reflection, reasoning with a subtle object. This is said to be a more refined analysis or a subtle exploration. Ānanda, this is bliss or joy, a natural uncaused joy arising in subtler states of meditation. And we have to remember that this idea of bliss, this Ānanda, is not sensual. It's not due to the senses. And that's hard to grasp sometimes, but it just so happens that I think today, August 28th, 2025, I just released a small short video on that, about the bliss of meditation, so you can go refer to that. Asmitā, the sense of I amness, the awareness of existence being. Rupa is form. Anugamat, this is following upon or accompanied by, also described as connected to. And then Samprajñāta, this is with cognitive content, accompanied with knowledge. So what this is describing is samadhi that is accompanied with knowledge, with seed, with content. And you can meditate on the gross elements. This is called the Bhutajaya practice. And if you meditate on water, you can experience a Vitarka samadhi by sitting still and flooding your mind, your consciousness, your field of consciousness, with everything you can think of about water. You can see oceans in your mind. You can imagine, remember what it feels like to float in a lake. You can think of mist, and you can think of what dew feels like. You can even say the word water or waves. Essentially, you are saturating your chitta with this gross thought. And when that's all you are aware of is this focus on this concept of water, you are experiencing a Vitarka samadhi. Vicāra, Ramana Maharshi made this more popular, and it's often termed as self-inquiry, but really what it means is a subtle reflection, a subtle feeling, a subtle experience. And so once you've felt the physical qualities of water, you've thought about, you've considered, you've reflected upon the physical qualities of water, well, when you begin to shift gears and move into the subtler energy of water, you let go of the specifics of wetness, and you let go of the specifics of the fact that it can be cool, or you can splash it, where it's a wave, and you feel within your body or within your mind fluidity, buoyancy, these subtler qualities and energies of water. That is Vicāra. And once your chitta, your meditative capacity becomes so saturated with that deep feeling, well, then you're experiencing Vicāra. So you see we're moving in stages from physical to subtler. And then Ānanda, bliss, joy, and Asmitā. This is getting it's going to be a little metaphysical and hard to describe. But Ānanda is what arises when as you go subtler into the practice, this inner sense of freedom comes about. This sense of not being bound by the physical, or even not being bound by the subtle. It's moving into your antakarana, the inner instrument. And again, this requires some reflection on Sankhya philosophy. But this bliss, this joy arises as you become more internally free, less defined, bound by the Vitarka and the Vicāra stage, even though those are extremely important and can be very enjoyable too. And then once you pass through the idea, the concept of bliss, Ānanda, then you come to the experience of asmita, which is the fact that you think you are you. And that has nothing to do with your name, your personality, your likes and your dislikes. If you've ever had a momentary experience where all you are aware of was the simple fact that you existed, you didn't have to have a name, you didn't have to have a family, it's just an awareness of existence, being. Well, this is where you're beginning to touch asmita, and also in Sankhya philosophy, where you're beginning to experience buddhi within the antakarana. And so in Samprajñāta samadhi, we go through these stages, and each stage is important, and they are all stages that can be experienced by your chitta, by your mind field. So that's why this is often called samadhi with seed, because you're not aware of 50 things, you're only aware of one thing, but you're still aware of one thing. So again, the literal rendering of this is Samprajñāta samadhi is accompanied by, so you experience this type of samadhi with Vitarka, Vicāra, Ānanda, and Asmitā. And to grasp this, you might need to do a little more research into Sankhya philosophy. We could spend a lot of time on this, but we only have so much time. So let's go ahead and move on to the next sutra, 118.
Okay, Sutra 118. Virama pratyaya bhyasa. Virama pratyaya bhyasa. Virama pratyaya bhyasa purvaha. Virama pratyaya bhyasa purvaha. Sanskara sheshonyaha. sanskara sheshonya virama pratyaya abhyasa purvaha virama pratyaya abhyasa purvaha sanskara sheshonya sanskara sheshonya virama pratyaya abhyasa purvaha sanskara sheshonya virama pratyaya abhyasa purvaha sanskara sheshonya.
Sutra 118. The literal rendering or translation. Another samadhi is preceded by the practice of cessation in which only residual impressions remain. So again, we're getting some fascinating metaphysical things here. But this sutra is talking about Samprajñāta samadhi. So the word that we used before, Samprajñāta samadhi, often translated as with wisdom or with cognitive content. Well, when you put an A or the A sound in front of a word, it negates it. So this is asamprajñāta. So this is seedless. Now, the thing about seedless samadhi is you have to go through the stages of samprajñāta samadhi before the seedless becomes natural. So all those stages, Vitarka, Vicāra, Ānanda, Asmitā, these are all stages that you go through in the process. And by going through them, they are preparing you for that opening up into the seedless state. And this is why the practice of yoga, you have to practice over a long period of time. Because when you experience samadhi with seed, with a form that you're meditating on, in a way that's like washing out the sanskaras, the subliminal activators within your individualized field of consciousness. And eventually you do it enough that they become washed away. And then again, this idea of asamprajñāta samadhi opens up to you. So let's look at each word here. Virama, cessation, stopping. So this is a complete stilling of all mental activity. And I might need to change that. It's really a complete stilling of the chitta, the mind field. And we have to remember chitta is more than just mental activity. It's all kinds of things. It's anything that you can observe. Pratyaya. I mentioned in previous classes, this is an important word. It's going to pop up a lot. And this is an immediately arising thought. It's the cognitive content. It's the objects that arise in this field of chitta. Abhyasa, we're familiar with that. Practice, continuous cultivation of stillness. And again, going back to samprajñāta samadhi, whenever you are so saturated with the subtle feeling of water, if you're practicing the Bhutajaya practice, when you're so saturated with it, that is a stillness. There is still something happening, but again, all those other distractions, all those 50 other distractions have become still except for the one. And that is an improvement in the situation. Purvaha, preceded by arising. Sanskara, mental impression, latent tendency, the subtle residue of past experiences. Shesha, which is shesho, remaining, what is left over. And then anya, another, different. So this is distinguishing it from samprajñāta samadhi. Another samadhi is preceded by the practice of cessation in which only the residual impressions remain. So as you practice samprajñāta samadhi, remember nirodha, the cessation, the ending of the fluctuations, the vrittis, that is like a habit or a pattern that develops. So in the beginning when you meditate, your mind is going all over the place. But as you continually bring it back to a point of focus with seed, whether it's gross thought or subtle or bliss or I amness. It's still bringing it back to one thing. There's a habit forming within the field of your consciousness, this nirodha, this pattern. And there comes a point in time in the yogi's process or the yogini's process, when instead of the mind being distracted and going all over the place, now the habit is to internalize itself and to calm down and be still. So there is this residual experience of nirodha happening. And it's growing, it's becoming its own kind of subliminal activator. We might be jumping ahead here a little bit, but essentially, once that subliminal activator towards nirodha, the cessation, becomes stronger than the experience of going out into distractions, it's called vyutana. When the stilling, the internalization becomes stronger, then what you're eventually going to experience, the way it feels to me, the way I describe is like you're going to roll into it. You just happen to roll over and there it is this asamprajñāta samadhi. And again, the trouble with asamprajñāta samadhi is there are no characteristics, qualities. We cannot in any way describe it, do it any kind of justice. But through practicing samprajñāta samadhi, you eventually figure it out. You eventually see it for yourself, something that no one could describe for you. There it is. And again, the sutra is just describing samprajñāta samadhi with knowledge, with content, and that eventually what the experience becomes is without knowledge, without content. And you can't imagine that because there's no content, there's no quality there. But you are moving towards that. And that is a very important step on the yoga path, the meditation and yoga path. Okay, let's move on.
Okay. Sutra 119. Bhava pratyayo, videha prakriti layanam, videha prakriti layanam, bhava pratyayo, videha prakriti layanam, videha prakriti layanam, bhava pratyayo videha prakriti layanam, bhava pratyayo videha prakriti layanam.
This is a sutra that also requires some understanding of Sankhya philosophy, and it's a very hard one to understand. It means more than the little bit that it says. But the literal rendering is, for the bodiless and those merged in nature, the cause is birth or a previous existence. And so this is talking about another, in a way, process that one might experience samadhi. And that is one who has been merged in unmanifest nature, prakriti. And it's because of their past practices. They've merged in this unmanifest aspect of prakriti. And it seems like that's an enlightened state, because the unmanifest aspect of prakriti is very still. But there's still a tendency to becoming. There's still a tendency towards birth. And so they haven't gone all the way to the full realization of what Purusha is. They haven't stabilized this capacity for the seedless state, asamprajñāta samadhi. And so when we look at the words, bhava, birth, existence, and more importantly, becoming, so refers to the cause rooted in previous existence. So when they're born at a very early age, they go into samadhi. It's because of their past practice, and they've come out of unmanifest nature to have this experience. Pratyaya, basis cause, again, immediate thought, the immediate arising of thought. This is the underlying condition that leads to this attainment. Videha, without body, so the bodiless ones, subtle beings not currently embodied. Prakriti laya, merged into nature, as we've said. beings absorbed into the unmanifest prakriti at dissolution. Prakriti layanam, of among, referring to these beings. So this is talking about beings, yogis, more than likely, who have gone through the process of yoga. They've done very well, but maybe their discernment wasn't quite right. They didn't quite make it to the final rolling over into Samprajñāta samadhi and staying there. And so they had merged into unmanifest prakriti. And you can stay there a long time. However, there is still something that is causing them to come back into being. And so in this lifetime, they have to come, when they do finally come into a human body, and they have to come into a human body to complete the process, then they have to continue what they're doing. And this is where it gets a little tricky, because a lot of people who have that experience, they describe this experience, they come into the world, they say, oh, I'm enlightened, and they just stay where they are, just like they were staying where they were before, and they don't continue the process. So that's again why this process is one that you continue while the whole time you are embodied. As long as you have a body, you keep discerning, you keep practicing, you keep going. Otherwise, you could turn into this experience, and this experience can last longer than you can imagine. So this is a warning, really, to keep practicing. And it's an interesting sutra. I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about it, and who knows, maybe I don't understand as well as I think I do either. But ultimately, if you came into this experience and you feel you are already enlightened, well, the fact that you came into this experience in the first place means that you still got some stuff to do. So keep abhyasa and vairagya, keep practicing. All right, let's move on to the next sutra.
Okay. Sutra 120. Shraddha virya, Shraddha virya, smriti samadhi, smriti samadhi, pragya purvaka, pragya purvaka, itaresham, itaresham, Shraddha virya, smriti samadhi, Shraddha virya, smriti samadhi, pragya purvaka, itaresham, pragya purvaka, itaresham, Shraddha virya, smriti samadhi, pragya purvaka, itaresham, Shraddha virya, smriti samadhi, pragya purvaka, itaresham.
And this is one of my personal favorite sutras, because it's describing what is required to experience the fullness of your yoga practice. For others, Samprajñāta samadhi is preceded by faith, vigor, mindfulness, samadhi, and wisdom. So for others, samadhi is preceded by faith, vigor, mindfulness, samadhi, and wisdom. Shraddha, this is faith, trust, or conviction. A deep confidence in the path, teacher, and one's own potential. I want to go back and speak to these a little bit more because I think it's important. Virya, this is energy, vigor, and strength, enthusiasm, disciplined effort. You want to do it. Smriti, mindfulness, memory, recollection. Samadhi, meditative absorption, the ability to bring the mind to full one-pointedness. Pragya, higher wisdom, insight. Purvaka, it's preceded by these things, higher wisdom, absorption, mindfulness, and so on. Itaresham, of the others, refers to other beings than the ones we just talked about, the bodiless ones. Now this sutra is extremely important. I feel that if there was a mantra, well actually there's quite a few, but if there was a mantra to pull from the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, this would be a good one. Shraddha, faith, trust, conviction. For many people this is difficult. because you're exploring something abstract, and there's a lot of people out there selling their snake oil about yoga and meditation. And so if you run into any of those and you didn't have any good experiences, it makes you doubt it even more. But there is an experience where you meet a teacher or a tradition or a path, and you feel a deep conviction, faith, and trust. And for me, it feels a lot like when I've met people who I know I'm going to spend a lot of time with, who's going to be a very important person in my life. Immediately there's a knowing, and you want to spend time with them. And there's a faith in their friendship, and there's a faith in their loyalty. And you share that with them as well. Well, we need to have, this needs to be a part of our actual practice. So when we sit down, we're not just going through the motions. We're not just doing it because someone said it's good for us. We want to do it. Just like we want to go spend time with our best friend, or we want to spend time with our beloved, or you get the idea. You want to do it. There's a pulling towards it, a love for it, a faith, a trust, a conviction, and that inspires the process. And that leads to virya, energy, vigor, strength. If you've been in love before, really in love, you know that you would do anything for your partner. And you're not doing it just because you have an obligation. You're doing it because you want to. It's like even if you're wiped out and you've had a really hard day and they need something, all of a sudden you find the energy, you find the vigor, you find the strength to help or support them or be with them. So because of this love, this faith, trust, conviction, virya develops. And then smriti, this is remembering the power of the practice, remembering why you love it. If you have momentary experiences of stillness, whether it's a Vitarka stage or a Vicāra stage, you remember it. And that helps to inspire you. It also helps your faith and your energy. And this inspires you towards a better capacity, towards samadhi and meditative absorption. And all these things result in insight, higher wisdom. It's like you figure out how to navigate your path, just like when you're in a relationship with your beloved or a very dear friend. Just by participating in the relationship with them, you learn how to be better in that relationship. So all of these things lead together or come together, and it results in this wisdom of how to practice this discriminative understanding. And this is how all the rest of us who aren't just born out of unmanifest prakriti, this is how we cultivate the capacity to actually experience real samadhi. And it begins with the Samprajñāta samadhi, and that becomes very inspiring, and you keep doing it, and then eventually the asamprajñāta samadhi becomes accessible to you. So with this sutra, this is a sutra to encourage you to reflect upon: do you have faith, trust, and conviction in what you're doing? Or are you just getting up and going through the routines and hoping, were you once Catholic and so you only do your meditation because you feel you've got sins you've got to burn through? Well, that's not going to work. There has to be a sense of love there, a sense of faith. And do you want to do it? This energy, vigor, strength. People who play in bands, they look forward to going and playing at practice or performing in their shows or practicing. They want to do it. There's energy there. Do you have that about your spiritual practice? If not, you have to find it. You have to find a way to tap into that. Do you think about it a lot? Just like, again, when you have a good relationship, you actually think about that person a lot. Well, is your mind pulled towards these experiences, these contemplations, the whole process of the philosophy? When my whole day is filled with this, even when I'm not actively meditating or studying or working to create classes, when I go on bike rides, I'm thinking about the sutras. When I'm laying down at night, I'm chanting mantras to Divine Mother. Any time that my mind has a moment to do something like that and it's not otherwise taken up with something, it automatically defaults to something, a mantra or a memory or a thought about the sutras or remembering my meditation experience. So this is where smriti comes into play. The yogi is directing their awareness in this way. And we'll see when we get down to, I think, before we get done with tonight's session, that our intensity in the process influences how near samadhi actually is for us. So that said, after you get done listening to this, maybe even take notes right now, come back and reflect upon this sutra in particular, because it's this sutra that's going to lead you to the understanding of, well, what is Vitarka, what is Vicāra, what is Ānanda, what is asmita, and how can I learn to experience these things? Faith, energy, mindfulness, samadhi, the insight that comes from it, all of this is what makes it possible for you to continuously return your chitta, your mind field, your inner sense to an experience of samadhi. So for others, samadhi is preceded by faith, vigor, mindfulness, samadhi, and wisdom. Okay.
Sutra 121. Tivra, tivra, samveganam, samveganam, tivra samveganam, tivra samveganam, asana, asana, tivra samveganam, asana, tivra samveganam, asana, tivra samveganam, asana, tivra samveganam, asana.
Yes, so we're getting into the section I was talking about, and the next one keeps going with this theme. So for those with intensity, with zeal, samadhi is near. And that makes sense. Those with intensity, samadhi is near. Tivra, intense, sharp, ardent. It's a forcefulness of one's aspiration, but it also means speed. And you'll understand why when we get to the next sutra. Some veganam, of those with urgency, zeal. And this is described as an almost existential urgency for liberation, in the same way that if you're in the desert and you've had no water for several days, you just need water. So when this arises within your incarnation that you just need liberation, remember at the beginning when we talked about those who were prepared to study the practices of the Yoga Sutras and the practices of yoga, that one needs to have a desire for liberation and a capacity for knowledge. And then asanaha, near, close at hand. So it's indicating that samadhi comes quickly for such people. Now we have to clarify the sutra, because this is not the energy of someone who has a psychological complex that is trying to overcompensate for something. It's not the kind of, I must experience samadhi, I must experience this sense of spiritual awakening through yoga because I'm in a whole lot of pain and I want to get away from the pain. That's not what we're talking about here. It's not the same kind of intensity of you running out of a burning house. It's not a running away from something. It is a running to something, and that's very different. Using the example of love, friendships, the beloved. When you are away from your beloved, you want to be with that person. So you're not running away from anything. In your mind, it is saturated with a deep existential need to be near the love that we're talking about. So this sutra is speaking directly to the practitioner who has the shraddha, the virya, the smriti, the intuitive insight, and so on. And it's what they love. They want more of it in a way. And this is the best I can do with words. But tivra samveganam asanaha. For those with intense zeal, samadhi is near. And it is okay if you do not have intense zeal. It is okay if at this time you are just trying to get your mind to calm down. It's okay if you are actually trying to escape from psychological pain, because it's still motivating you towards yoga. And the Bhagavad Gita talks about this, about the different types of devotees. Those who are motivated to get away from pain, those who are motivated to become better, those who are motivated for the sake of spiritual awakening. So it doesn't matter where you are, you're still moving in the same direction. But so long as you keep practicing and you stick with it, there will come a period where you realize this is the only important thing. And you want it, not because you're trying to escape from something, but because it is like a deep love that is pulling you, an existential love that is pulling you. And when that happens, then certainly the experiences of samadhi are near, because you're going to do whatever it takes to align your mind-body unit, your energetic situation, so it's natural to open yourself up to this stage and this experience of samadhi. Okay, let's look at the last sutra.
Sutra 122. Mridu madhya, mridu madhya, adimatratvat, adimatratvat, mridu madhya, adimatratvat, mridu madhya, adimatratvat, tatopi visheshaha, tatopi visheshaha, mridu madhya, adimatratvat, mridu madhya, adimatratvat, tatopi visheshaha, tatopi visheshaha, mridu madhya, adimatratvat, tatopi visheshaha, mridu madhya, adimatratvat, tatopi visheshaha.
Okay, our final sutra for tonight. This sutra is continuing on with the last theme, and it's describing grades or variations in the closeness of samadhi. Literal rendering, even among them, there is a distinction. So even among those who have samadhi close at hand, there is a distinction. Mild, medium, or intense in practice and zeal. So mridu, mild, gentle, a low degree of intensity. Madhya, medium, moderate, a balanced but not maximal level of effort. Adimatra, excessive, superior, great, the highest degree of intensity and effort and aspiration. Adimatratvat, because of, due to. Then tatopi, even from that further. Visheshaha, distinction, difference. So this is the difference in the speed of attaining samadhi. But this is speaking at a different level as well. It's the speed of your chitta, your mind field. It's hard to describe, but if you can imagine that your chitta, your mind field, that which is full of vrittis, is moving at a particular speed. And when the mind field or chitta is filled with vrittis, it's slowed down. So the vrittis are like the baggage in the field of your field of consciousness. And the more fluctuations and changes there are, the slower your chitta is. And as you practice yoga, meditation, samadhi, those vrittis become stiller, and it's like you're dropping the baggage, you're dropping the weights, you're letting go of your attachments. And each attachment you let go of, that mind field, that chitta, speeds up. And so there are people who, they practice yoga meditation, but they're still attached to a lot of things. They really do a good job with their meditation, but they're still really attached to a lot of things. And so the speed, their intensity is mild, it's gentle. There are individuals who are less attached. Their vrittis are less. Their focus is more on their spiritual path. And so madhya, they have a medium or moderate speed level of effort. And then the adimatra, this is when a person's vrittis are have been very much eliminated or burnt, I guess you could say. And their only real interest is their spiritual path. And again, we have to remember that this interest is not an escaping from something else. It's not escaping from your duties. It's not, I'm tired of my family and I want to get away from it, so I'm going to throw myself into religion. It's not that. It is a natural shifting of priorities, a natural letting go of the things that everyone else is attached to, a natural aligning of their life so that they can spend more time studying, practicing, contemplating, meditating, being a loving, kind person, being free of ego as best they can be. And when that happens, then the chitta, the mind field, becomes very fast. And so we can look at this on a couple different levels. In a way, a metaphysical level of the speed of your own mind and your attachments are what slow that down. But also the intensity of your practice. How much time are you spending focusing on your studies and your inner contemplations, and how much time are you focusing on really trying to actually feel a samadhi experience, because it is an experience. It's not something you talk about that you hope happens. It's something that you can learn to do repeatedly again and again. That's the whole point of Kriya Yoga and the whole point of the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. So this is a call to consider your life, and you don't have to make any huge changes unless you are inspired to. That's the key. Don't do it because of guilt or obligation or a sense you must. But you can begin to consider, well, how can I just slightly direct my attention a little bit more inward, a little bit more towards this process of yoga, if that's what inspires you. And then in time, you'll speed up from mild and gentle to medium and moderate. You'll speed up from mridu to madhya to adimatra. And it's a natural process, so it's nothing you have to force or hurry. You just have to continuously, through abhyasa and vairagya, bring your attention back to it. Good. Before we conclude tonight, Danelle, it'd be wonderful if you could chant the sutras. So maybe chant each sutra maybe 3 times, and then go back through again and chant them all together maybe 3 times, if that would be okay.
Okay. Vitarka vichara Ānanda asmita rupanugamat samprajñāta. Vitarka vichara Ānanda asmita rupanugamat samprajñāta. Vitarka vichara Ānanda asmita rupanugamat samprajñāta. Virama pratyaya vyasa purvaha sanskara sheshonyaha. Virama pratyaya vyasa purvaha sanskara sheshonyaha. Virama pratyaya vyasa purvaha sanskara sheshonyaha. Bhava pratyayo videha prakriti layanam. Bhava pratyayo videha prakriti layanam. Bhava pratyayo videha prakriti layanam. Shraddha virya smriti samadhi pragya purvaka iteresham. Shraddha virya smriti samadhi pragya purvaka iteresham. Shraddha virya smriti samadhi pragya purvaka iteresham tivra samveganam asana tivra samveganam asana tivra samveganam asana mridumadyari matratvat tatopi visheshaha mridumadyari matratvat tatopi visheshaha mridumadyari matratvat tatopi visheshaha Vitarka Vicāra Ānanda Asmitā Rupanugamat Samprajñāta Virama Pratyaya Vyasa Purvaha Sanskara Sheshonyaha Bhava Pratyayo Videha Prakriti Layanam Shraddha Virya Smriti Samadhi Pragya Purvaka Iteresham Tivra Samveganam Asanaha Mridumadyari Matratvat Tatopi Visheshaha Vitarka Vicāra Ānanda Asmitā Rupanugamat Samprajñāta Virama Pratyaya Vyasa Purvaha Sanskara Sheshonyaha Bhava Pratyayo Videha Prakriti Layanam Shraddha Virya Smriti Samadhi Pragya Purvaka Iteresham Tivra Samveganam Asanaha Mridumadyari Matratvat Tatopi Visheshaha Vitarka Vicāra Ānanda Asmitā Rupanugamat Samprajñāta Virama Pratyaya Vyasa Purvaha Sanskara Sheshonyaha Bhava Pratyayo Videha Prakriti Layanam Shraddha Virya Smriti Samadhi Pragya Purvaka Iteresham Tivra Samveganam Asanaha Mridumadyari Matratvat Tatopi Visheshaha
Okay, thank you, Danelle. So let's end with just a brief meditation, a brief centering. Again, feeling the body, feeling the breath, and observing the state of your mind, the feeling within the mind and the feeling within the heart as you breathe. Maybe some of these ideas are flowing through the mind, or some of the Sanskrit words or terms are floating in your mind and awareness. That's okay, it's good. And we'll conclude chanting Om 3 times together. Oh. Thank you for being here, Danelle. It's good to see you.
Thanks very much. Have a great week, everyone.
And those of you who are interested, as I've had a few questions, if you are in New Zealand and you would like to know more about Danelle, you can go to the Kriya Yoga Online homepage, and let's see, you can go to Kriya Yoga Online Facilitators and scroll down, and there's a little bit about Danelle, and there's her Facebook, so you can contact her if you're interested. All right. Okay, Danelle, we'll see you next week.
See you
Peace.
then. Bye-bye. Bye.